You're born into the world on a crisp Tuesday morning in the year 2000, greeted not with cheers of freedom, but the sound of your parents squabbling over your future. We need to start saving for college, your mom insists, while your dad calculates how many fewer vacations they can take over the next 18 years. Before you've even taken your first breath, you're already a part of the system, a tiny cog waiting to be molded into the perfect fit for the giant machine called society. From day one, the expectations are clear. You're not just a baby, you're a project. Every coo, every gurgle, every milestone becomes something to track, document, and analyze. He smiled today, your mom writes in her journal, followed by, but is he smiling enough? Does he meet the developmental milestones for his age group? The pressure begins before you can even hold up your own head. As the years roll by, your days fill with carefully orchestrated activities. Your parents enroll you in mommy and me classes, not because you need socialization, but because another parent told them that early interaction builds emotional intelligence. Your toddler years are a blur of finger painting, playdates, and Baby Einstein DVDs. You're surrounded by an ever-growing arsenal of educational toys that promise to make you a genius by age 5. Then comes preschool, where the grind begins in earnest. Your parents obsess over which program to enroll you in, weighing the pros and cons of Montessori versus Reggio Emilia. They discuss the school's reputation as if they're planning a corporate merger. This one feeds into the best elementary schools, they whisper, as if your academic destiny depends on which finger painting station you'll use. Your preschool days are a mix of songs, snacks, and structured play. On the surface, it looks like fun, but even here, the subtle push toward productivity begins. We're teaching them to share and take turns, the teacher explains, but what they're really doing is preparing you for future corporate team-building exercises. You learn to color inside the lines, not because it's fun, but because it teaches you to follow rules. By age 5, you're a master at tracing letters, singing the alphabet, and lining up in a straight row. Your parents beam with pride at your preschool graduation, snapping photos as if you've just received a Nobel Prize. But you're blissfully unaware that this is only the beginning of a much longer journey. Elementary school marks your official entry into the system. From the moment you step into that brightly decorated classroom, your life becomes a series of schedules, rules, and evaluations. You learn to raise your hand before speaking, a skill you'll later use to navigate office meetings where your ideas are ignored. You memorize multiplication tables and state capitals, not because they'll matter in real life, but because the system demands it. Your teachers are kind but firm, gently nudging you toward conformity. Sit still, they say. Follow instructions. The lessons are simple. Compliance is rewarded, and questioning authority earns you a trip to the principal's office. You quickly learn that coloring outside the lines is a metaphorical no-go. At home, your parents double down on the pressure. Homework becomes a nightly ritual, a battle of wills between your desire to watch cartoons and their insistence that you need to build good habits. They sign you up for extracurricular activities, filling your afternoons with soccer practice, piano lessons, and art classes. You're not allowed to focus on just one thing. Variety builds character, they say, as if juggling 3 different hobbies at age 8 is the key to success. Middle school is where the cracks in the system first start to show. You're no longer a wide-eyed child, but not yet a fully disillusioned teenager. Here, the pressure intensifies. Grades start to matter, and you're introduced to the concept of honors classes, a stratified system where the gifted kids are separated from the rest. If you're lucky, you make the cut. If not, you're left wondering if you're already falling behind in life. Social dynamics take center stage, and the once simple world of recess and lunch breaks becomes a battleground of cliques and alliances. You're judged not just on your grades, but on your clothes, your hair, and the way you talk. Middle school is a crash course in social survival, preparing you for the even more cutthroat world of high school. Your evenings are consumed by homework and extracurriculars. Science fairs, group projects, and after-school clubs leave little time for anything else. You start to feel the weight of expectations pressing down on you. Your parents remind you constantly, these years are important. They set the foundation for high school. And high school, as they tell you, will determine everything. High school arrives like a freight train, loaded with hormones, existential dread, and the crushing weight of expectations. You're constantly balancing between angsty music sessions and pretending to care about the Pythagorean theorem. You join clubs you don't care about, debate, yearbook, robotics, because someone told you they look good on college applications. Your social life? A minefield. Friends are less about genuine connections and more about alliances to survive the next 4 years. Meanwhile, the internet introduces you to the concept of hustle culture. Suddenly, you're bombarded with motivational videos and success stories about teenagers who launched million-dollar startups from their garages. You feel inspired for about 15 minutes before the weight of your unfinished homework drags you back to reality. You're also introduced to the world of social media, where every post feels like a reminder of what you're not doing. That kid who aces every test and volunteers on weekends? They're your nemesis. Senior year is a blur of college prep. SATs, ACTs, AP exams, you're buried under acronyms. Your nights are consumed by essays where you try to make your life sound more interesting than it is. I've always been passionate about, you write, knowing full well that's not entirely true. You finally get into a college, not your dream school, but it'll do. Your parents' relief is palpable. For them, it's a victory. For you, it's just the next level of the same game. College is marketed as the time of your life, a place for self-discovery and freedom. Instead, it feels like high school, but with more debt and fewer rules. Your classes are either mind-numbingly boring or incomprehensibly complex. You pick a major not because you love it, but because it seems practical. Career fairs become your new hunting ground, a jungle where you try to make a lasting impression with a 30-second elevator pitch. Your classmates seem more like competitors than friends, each of them vying for the same limited internships. Networking events feel like speed dating, except you're trying to woo potential employers with buzzwords and a polished resume. Between classes and internships, you squeeze in moments of fun, but they're always tinged with guilt. A night out with friends? That's 3 hours you could have spent studying. A weekend getaway? That's money you should have saved for textbooks. Even your breaks are loaded with pressure. Winter break is for internships. Summer is for research projects. The idea of free time becomes a distant memory. By junior year, the weight of student loans looms large. You start calculating interest rates in your head, wondering how long it'll take to pay them off. Probably until I'm 40, you joke, but the thought lingers. Your dreams of becoming an artist, a writer, or anything remotely unconventional fade into the background as the reality of financial survival takes over. Senior year brings a mix of relief and terror. You're almost done, but the question of what's next looms over every conversation. You apply to dozens of jobs, tailoring your resume and cover letter until you can write one in your sleep. When you finally land a position, it's not your dream job, but it's something. Just for now, you tell yourself, but deep down, you know it's the beginning of the grind. Graduation day comes and goes in a blur of handshakes, photos, and the faint smell of freshly pressed gowns. You're officially an adult now, or at least that's what they tell you. In reality, you're just a slightly older student with no cafeteria and a lot more bills. Your first job? It's a mix of excitement and dread. The excitement comes from finally having an income, no matter how modest. The dread? That's realizing how much of that income will vanish into rent, student loans, and a coffee addiction you've developed to survive early mornings. The 9-to-5 life is not what the sitcoms promised. You imagined yourself waltzing into a chic office, shaking hands, and brainstorming groundbreaking ideas. Instead, you're greeted by fluorescent lighting, a cubicle that's slightly smaller than your college dorm, and an inbox overflowing with requests that all seem equally urgent. Meetings dominate your days, most of which could have been summarized in a single email. You learn to nod strategically, contributing just enough to seem engaged without drawing attention. The highlight of your day. The moment you realize someone left leftover bagels in the break room. Days blur into weeks, weeks into months. The rhythm of the working world is relentless. Wake up. Commute. Work. Commute. Sleep. Repeat. Occasionally, you break the monotony with happy hours or office parties, but even these feel like extensions of the grind. Networking never ends, and every casual conversation carries the weight of potential career implications. You begin to notice time slipping away. The hours between work and sleep are too short to pursue hobbies, too fleeting to reconnect with old friends. You try signing up for a gym membership, taking a cooking class, or joining a book club, but the energy just isn't there. Netflix and takeout become your default companions. The weekends, once a sanctuary, are no longer a reprieve. Saturdays are for catching up on errands you couldn't manage during the week. Sundays? They're overshadowed by the creeping anxiety of Monday morning. Somewhere in the grind, you meet someone. Perhaps it's a chance encounter at a coffee shop or through a dating app you reluctantly joined. They're funny, charming, and for reasons you can't fathom, they find your half-hearted jokes endearing. One thing leads to another, and before you know it, you're walking down the aisle. Marriage brings joy, but also responsibility. Now, you're not just working for yourself, you're part of a team. Bills pile up faster, and the conversations about career goals are peppered with dreams of starting a family. You try to balance it all, work, love, life, but the scale always seems to tip towards stress. Then comes the next big step, parenthood. The day your child is born, You feel a mix of overwhelming love and crushing responsibility. As you hold that tiny bundle of potential, you realize the cycle has restarted. One day you catch a glimpse of yourself in the mirror, older, wiser, and a little more worn. You reflect on the journey, the sacrifices, the endless chase for something better. And while you can't escape the feeling that the system is flawed, you also recognize the beauty in the small moments. The laughter, the connections, the resilience. The cycle may be relentless, but within it lies the essence of life. And as you watch your child take their first steps into the world, you hope they'll find a way to break free, or at least make peace with the grind. After all, isn't that what every generation hopes for?